Hey everybody, it's Amber Artemis, and I am here today talking to you about the who, what, when, where, why, and how of launching a local business. And so today we're going to talk about the where. Learn how to start a business in your community with Launch Local podcast, full of know-how and inspiration from successful small business owners, including your host, Amber Artemis. So our first local business was a home-based business. We worked out of our home office and went into the field. And that is how we have always operated that business. We've never had a studio. We still operate this business, by the way. It's a photography business. We do our consultations over the phone and we shoot on location. We shoot outdoors at local parks or weddings, events, and we go to where the work is. The work is not coming to us. And that worked fabulously. So we had a real small business that we ran from our home for the last 20 years, practically. And so it has its advantages and its disadvantages like anything else. So it's great to have a business where you can work from your home because you can keep your overhead low. That makes starting up so much easier when you don't have fixed overhead of renting a space and the utilities and everything associated with having an actual physical location. There are disadvantages, like for instance, in our industry, sales could be a challenge because really it is best to be able to meet with people in person and show them things that they're buying in person, especially when they're high-end things that are, cost over $1,000 or more. People kind of expect that. And it works best in my experience. I used to actually meet with people then to sell wedding albums, and it's the best way to do it. If somebody's going to spend, 1,500 or $2,000 on a book, like they certainly deserve to hold an example in their hands. And we actually brought people into our home at one point to do sales too. It's a lot, we're like having people come into your home, and we're actually heading back in that direction with our winery. We're moving wine production back to our home, which is we're converting into a farm, an orchard, and living the homestead life. But yeah, we will be inviting customers back onto our property, and there's liability and privacy concerns. But I am ready to take that on again. I feel like as my children are older, we used to have sales meetings in our living room when my kids were babies, and I would clean like a maniac and then kick my husband out, take the kids out for pizza or whatever, take them to the park, just be gone for 2 hours so that I could do a sales meeting with our clients. And it was a lot. It was a lot when you have toddlers and babies at home and little kids, and just being that frazzled and stressed out, like right before people are coming, wasn't the vibe I was going for. So we let that go. We went just strictly online for everything. We changed our sales model so that we didn't have to do in-person sales, and we were okay with that. And so were our clients. At the end of the day, we delivered what they were looking for, and everybody was happy. So working from home is a solid option. You can write off part of your home for tax purposes. There's a formula you can come up with to calculate the square footage that you're using for your business, and you can deduct that from your taxes. So that was really cool to do, having additional write-off, like for something that really didn't cost us anything else. I will say it was an unfortunate surprise that when we sold our home years later, there was a recapture of the portion of our home that had been written off for business purposes. So because our home appreciated in value, when we sold it, it triggered a taxable event where the portion that we had been writing off actually became taxable income. that year. And unfortunately for us, our daughter was going to college that year, and we really did not want to show additional income, but oh well. C'est la vie. Okay, so that covers some thoughts about working from home. You could have a totally legitimate business, local business working from home. And whether that's going out into the world to work or having your customers come into your home or onto your property in some fashion. And, I haven't even touched on having like a separate building or just having them somewhere else on your property. That's all doable and things that I've seen successfully implemented in local businesses. Now, the real big where location question is if you're going to have a brick and mortar elsewhere. So the easiest thing to do is just start out with as little as possible space that you need and then grow into a bigger space as your needs grow. That helps you keep your overhead down when you're first launching, and that's very important as you figure out how much revenue your business is going to generate. Of course, if you want to go big from the get-go or you need to because of your operating model, certainly go for it. The inventory of commercial real estate that you can check out through a local realtor or on Zillow is where I would begin. But then a lot is going to happen through word of mouth. That's always been what we've found to be true. A lot of times you'll find out about opportunities just by putting it out there that you're looking. And then in the community, people may approach you with leads to help you meet your goals. So keep that in mind. When you get your brick and mortar place, it may take some time for you to remodel and get an occupancy permit before you can even open your doors. And that kind of hurts because the longer that you take to do that, the more expensive it is, where you have to sign a lease before you're even able to start operating. And that problem only gets a little worse when you're building. So if you're waiting to break ground, the longer that takes is the longer until you can start making money. So hopefully you've factored in an appropriate timeline and funds for your launch that are going to get you through to when you're actually able to start operating. So yeah, brick and mortar is a little scarier because your overhead is fixed. And one thing to keep in mind is that you might consider co-locating with another business. Sharing space allows you to share overhead, and that's what we ended up doing with our business, our winery business. So, true story, my husband was initially planning to partner with a group of guys that wanted to launch a brewery, and he was going to be the cider maker and cross pollinate with their brewmaster, and the two of them were going to help each other out with their work. They looked around for over a year possibly for the perfect location, and they tried to keep an open mind, and because our inventory of commercial property in our community is very limited, and they came up with designs to suit the space, each space that they were considering, but they really just never found the right spot, and the idea sort of fizzled out. And Josh was able to move forward on his own because he separated the idea that production had to be co-located with the tasting room facility, with the public-facing shop part of the facility. So once he decided he could produce in one location and then sell the customers in another, that opened up a whole world of possibilities for him. It really lowered the bar on what he required from a location. So he was able to move forward with a very efficient setup. It required him to invest in a building. He built a pole building for his production facility, but then once that was paid off, his operating costs were very low. And he was able to finance that himself on a credit card, actually. So didn't even need a bank loan or any of that stuff, and ended up in a co-location in a bustling tourist district in our town, Jim Thorpe. and was able to share expenses and overhead by sharing a shop front. So there's another business there, and we share common areas like our front room and our back patio. And then he has a lovely little, actually, it's really just a hole in the wall. It's kind of cute. Like, it's behind two pocket doors in an old Victorian home on the first floor, and they had very large parlors, and so you open the pocket doors, and there's our exclusive space where we serve our wine and cider and prepare food. We have a very small kitchen, about 8 by 8 feet, that we churn out sandwiches and charcuterie from. So, but he wouldn't have gotten there if he had stayed fixed in his mind that production needed to be in the same place that he was serving. It just wouldn't have happened because we were not willing to go to another area. Like, we knew we wanted to be in this community. And so if we had stayed fixed on that as a criteria, it probably just would have fizzled out and not happened. Or maybe we would have found a way eventually if we were determined enough. It's important. So with your where, I will add that it's good to get a lease if you don't own the place, a formal lease. You want as long a lease as the landlord is willing to offer, generally speaking. Once you know your business is viable, you would want to ask for an extended lease so that you're not worried year to year about whether or not that's going to renew. In the past, I knew somebody that when it was time to sell their business, they were unable to do that because they didn't have a lease in place. And if you have a service-based business, like a beauty parlor or a pizza shop, and someday you want to sell, your lease is going to be a key component of that. And it does need to be renegotiated with the new owner, but having that in place provides crucial value to your business. So I'm sure we could talk about a lot more things about location, but I think I said enough for now. Get those wheels turning. And the important thing is to find the right place for you to build your business and move forward. So good luck with that. If you're getting ready to launch your own local business, head on over to my website for some free resources. I especially recommend that you check out the quiz. I put that in the header of my website. It's that important. It's called the Ready to Launch Quiz, and it's real quick and easy. It walks you through some basic foundational pieces to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row to launch your local business. And then if you take that quick quiz, I will give you personalized feedback on where you're doing great and where you might need to strengthen up a little bit before you launch your local business so that you can get that off the ground and be on your way to success. I also have lots of other great free resources available, again, when you visit launchlocal.biz. Let's keep in touch.
Launch Local is an original podcast produced and recorded by Amber Artemis at Leisure Lane Studio in Jim Thorpe, PA. Show music is by Joshua Finsel. This is a video podcast available for viewing on YouTube or at the show website, launchlocal.biz, where you can subscribe to the show newsletter and find helpful tools like the Ready to Launch quiz. Take the quiz at launchlocal.biz to see if you're ready to launch your own local business.